Hi and welcome to this application demo. I'd like to thank all the Velocity attendees who have participated in our Win a Prize guessing game at the conference. The timer will start now, so let's take a look and see how long it takes to build an issue tracker application using Caspio. I'm logged inside my Caspio account at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and click on New Application, and we're going to build this application from scratch. Let's give it a name. And then once you name the application, you're going to click on Open, go directly to your tables, and this is the first thing that we need to do in Caspio. We have to build our foundation. So I'm going to build two tables, and I'm going to list all of my fields. And the first table I'm going to build is the user table that's going to contain all of my employee information, which includes all the managers and also all of the employees. So let's go ahead and list all the fields. And to identify in Caspio who is a specific user role, you have to use a checkbox inside your table. Let's go ahead and save it, and let's call it Table Employees. And I'm using the abbreviation IT for Issue Tracker. And let's build one more table. And this table is going to contain all the issue information. So I'm going to need issue ID, which is going to be an auto number. So every time somebody submits an issue, that needs to have a unique ID as well. User ID, we're going to stamp from our employee table so we can see who was the user that submitted that issue. We're going to have date submitted, which is going to be a date and time field inside a table. And then we're going to list a few fields here that pertain to all the issue information. So where did you find it? Where did you locate that issue? Describe in detail. And we can make this actually be a text 64,000 so we can type in more data. We can have some kind of a category field to identify what category that issue belongs into. And then we're going to have a field that's going to say assigned to, which is going to be the name. So we're going to stamp the name. And also we're going to have assigned to ID, so which user is being assigned to that issue. Let's also have severity to identify the level or degree of the severity of this issue. You can also upload a file. So if you wish to upload a PDF or some kind of a document or an image, we can have a file type field. Fixed, if it was fixed or it wasn't fixed, so we'll have that be a status. And also, last but not least, why don't we add some notes so that the employees can type in any resolution to the issue. If they were able to pick up on anything, they can type in the details. So let's go ahead and save this table now, and let's call it Table Issues, and I'll just abbreviate that as IT for Issue Tracker. Click on Finish. And now my application has a total of two tables. I'm going to list just two employees here so we can see who's who once I'm testing it inside the website. So we'll say Jesse Jones, and we'll just put him a random email here. And we'll give it a password of test, and the password is going to be encrypted, and we'll make Jesse be the manager of the application. And we'll have Anna Smith. Also give her a password of test. And we'll make Anna be the employee of this application so Anna can log in and submit issues. And let's go ahead and go back to our tables. And the next step is really to set up the foundation as far as how employees are going to be filtered, who is the manager and who is the employee. So let's set up the authentication. Before I can do that, I have to build two views. And these two views are going to filter who the manager is and who the employee is. So let's have the employees table to the right. And on the next screen, I want to filter based on the manager checkbox. Okay, you can see this little funnel icon here. That's basically going to filter all the managers from the employee table. Click on Finish. Let's build another view for the employees. So filter employees based on the same table. And this time we're going to use the employee checkbox to filter all of our employees. So basically what these two views are doing, if I click on open for the employees, you're going to be able to see just the employee information. And if I open up the manager view, you're going to be able to see all the management information. And now we can set up our two authentications, one for the management and one for the employees. So let's click on the new authentication. And we're going to select let's go with the employee view first, because this view is filtering all the employees. We're going to use custom and recommended. And I'm just going to rename my label to email. And then you have your email and password fields as your credentials to log in. Let's click on create, and let's call this employee auth IT. And let's build one more for the management. So manager view, custom, recommended, and let's say email and password. Click on create, and we'll say manager auth IT for issue tracker. Okay, so this is the foundation that we set up inside Caspio. Now let's go to data pages, and let's see how we can build our forms and reports. The first thing I'm going to do is create two folders, one folder for the management and one folder for the employees. And these folders are basically going to serve as a way for me to keep things organized inside my account. And the first form that I want to build is for the management to be able to add employees. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on the manager folder. Let's click on new data page. We're going to use the submission form to add a new employee. In Caspio, this navigation here will allow you to build various different application interfaces for your website. I'm going to select submission form. That needs to be based on the employee table because I want the management to be able to add an employee. We can apply a couple of styles here. Let's go with our iPhone style. And let's call this add new employee. I also want to restrict access to my management authentication that we just created. Okay, because only the management should have access to that form. Here are all the fields from my table that I built, my employee table. So I'm going to move all the fields to the right. And then now you can configure each one of your fields. So email is going to be name is going to be a text field. Email can be a text field, or we can validate the email field using this special element email. We can create passwords for the employees, and we can identify what privileges they have by assigning them a different user role for management or for an employee. Click on finish. And here is your first web form that you created using Caspio. So let's go ahead and deploy this form. And we're going to go ahead and just copy this embed code into our website, into a page that I called Add Employee. So here's my placeholder. And if you look at the live example here on the manager, and if I add employee, you're going to see that placeholder. So let's go ahead and replace that now with our Caspio code. Let's go ahead and save our script. Refresh. And here's that login screen now for the management to be able to log in. And we know that our manager is Jesse with a password test. And as soon as you log in, you have access to that web form. And now you can fill this out. And once you fill this form out and click submit, all that data is going to be stored inside the employee table. You're going to be able to see additional employees inside the backend database. The second data page that I want to build for the management is the ability to manage employees. So now that I can add employees, I want to be able to manage them as well. So let's click on new data page. And this time I want to build a report. And let's go with the tabular report. This is a most popular one amongst our customers. So we're going to select tabular, which allows you to search, see the results, and drill down to details. That's also going to be based on the employee table. Let's apply the same style, iPhone style, and let's call this data page Manage Employees. We're going to restrict access based on the management authentication because manager should only be able to manage all the employees. Let's have a search form, and we're not going to set up record level security. And let's search based on name. And for the search form, you can see configure properties. For the search form and name, let's just have it be contains. instead of equal. If I leave it as equal, I have to know the employee name, but contains gives me a partial keyword search. And also instead of text field, you have options for drop-downs, list boxes, and a few other filtering options. On the results page, I'd like to see the name of the employee, their email, and their status. Not going to make any changes here, and let's go ahead and enable the details page. And in the details view, we're going to include all the fields, and we're going to make some of these fields editable by changing the form element. So let's go ahead and do this really quickly. And we're going to change these from display only to checkboxes. And then go ahead and click on finish. And now you have two data pages. You have the ability to add employees, and now you have the ability to manage employees. So what we're going to do is deploy this data page into my web page that I called Manage Employees. So here's my placeholder. I'm going to replace that with my Caspio code. And let's go ahead and go to that page, Manage Employees. And now you have the ability to search based on name. You click search, you see the results of all the employees, including the manager. You can see who has access to what. And then inside the details view, you have the ability to edit all the employee information, including their name, password, and also what user level access they have inside this application. The next thing that I want to build is the ability for the employees to add an issue to the application. So let's go back to our Caspio account. I can close this folder now if I want to. Let's open up the employee folder, click on new data page. And to submit a new issue, I need a submission form, and I need to base that submission form on the issues table because that's where all the fields are. Let's call this submit or new issue form. Let's apply the same style. And let's restrict access now on the employee authentication because that submission form is only accessible by the employees. I'm going to go ahead and move all the fields to the right. And right over here where we have user ID, what we can do in this case, instead of users manually typing the user ID, we can hide this field and we can stamp that from the authentication table, user ID. It's going to be a hidden field, but it's going to stamp every time Anna submits an issue, it's going to stamp her user ID. I can also stamp her name by hiding this field and stamp the employee's name. Date submitted, this was going to be a timestamp. Okay, the user is not going to see this field, but it's going to stamp the date and time of the submission. And then you have your questions pertaining to the issue. So where did you find it? I can add a question mark. You can make this field required if it needs to be submitted. Then describe in detail. Let's go ahead and just modify our label a little bit. And we'll go ahead and make this a text area so the user can actually see what they're typing inside a nice box. Then you have category, and then here you can assign this issue to somebody else. Okay, so what we want to do here in this case is just have a nice drop down. We're going to do a lookup table, and we're going to go ahead and pull this data from our employees view. Okay, because this view is filtering all the employees based on that employee checkbox. So I can select this. Field for display is going to be name. Field for value is also going to be name. So I'm stamping the name of the employee inside this table. And I also want to cascade the ID of the employee. So we're going to do a cascading dropdown. Okay, and then the source is going to be lookup table. We want to select the view again that's filtering all the employees, cascade by employee name, and field for display is going to be user ID and user ID for value. So inside the issues table, we want to stamp who this issue is being assigned to and also their ID. And then you have severity, and for this one we can also make this a drop down. And then you can have a couple of options here. You can say select, delete the value because you're not really selecting this, and then you can add high, medium, and low, for example. Upload file, you can upload a document if you have an image or some kind of a file that you're uploading. Whether or not this issue was fixed, and I don't actually need to see this in the entry form because you're submitting the form initially, so we can remove this field. And the notes field, so you can submit some notes We're going to save this actually for the details page in the report as well. So let's go ahead and remove that, because we already have this text area so they can describe in detail what's going on with that issue. So let's click Finish now. And let's go ahead and deploy this form into a page that I called New Issue. Here's my placeholder. We're going to just paste our code again. And now let's go ahead and log in as Anna, who is the employee. And as soon as you log in, now you can go ahead and submit this issue, and then you can assign it to all the other employees within the application. You also have the option to select severity and also upload a document or a file pertaining to that issue. Okay. The next step is once this issue is submitted, let's go ahead and now assign an issue to myself. Hi, and then we don't have to upload a file, so we're going to click Submit. Your submission was successful. And now I want to build a report that actually allows me to see just my own issues based on my user ID. So we're going to build a new data page. Okay, and this time I want to build a report, and let's go with the tabular format. Click on Next. It's going to be based on the issues table because that's where all the issues are stored. We're going to apply the same style, and let's call this data page My Issues. Restrict access based on the employee authentication. And right over here, what you want to do is, instead of seeing a search form, let's just go ahead and filter our data, and let's restrict access based on my user ID. Okay, all the issues that have been assigned to me. Click Next. We're not going to filter any data. Let's skip all the way to the results page. And in the results page, I'd like to be able to see some data here. Okay, so let's say date submitted, who the issue was submitted by, where did they find it. You can include this in the results page as well, but it's not necessary. We can include that in the details page. Then let's have category. It's going to be assigned to me. Severity, we can also look at the document from the results page, if it was fixed or wasn't fixed. And then we can have the notes in the details page as well. So this is the results page. I'm not going to make any changes here. Let's skip all the way to the details page by enabling it. And in the details page, let's have date submitted, who the issue was submitted by, where did they find it, the details, category, severity, file, and the notes. So I can update the notes if I'm the one who's fixing that issue. Okay, so let's click Next, and let's modify a few fields here so we can see all of this data. We should be able to download this file, okay? And then fixed, for this one, why don't we make this an actual radio button for now? And let's say yes and no. Just two options, whether or not the issue was fixed or it wasn't fixed. And then for notes, let's have this be a text area so they can type in more notes in terms of if they were able to find any other issues with it. Click Finish. And now let's go ahead and deploy this data page to My Issues page by removing this placeholder, pasting our code. And now Anna can see all the issues that have been assigned to her. She can also see that this issue here was assigned by herself. And then I can go to details. And now I can say if the issue was fixed or not. I can add my notes. And you can also download the file. However, I don't have a file here, so there's no link here to click to be able to look at the image or any kind of a PDF document. So the next step is to just be able to search all issues assigned to everyone, so there's no record level security here. So all I need to do now is click on New Data Page. Let's go with the report, tabular format, click Next, based on the issues table. And let's call this Search All Issues. Same style. And let's restrict access based on the employee authentication. Click on Next. And let's have the ability to search data. So we want to be able to search all the issues. And now we don't need to restrict record level security because we want to be able to see all the issues. However, we won't be able to edit all the issues, but we can at least search for all of them. So let's search based on dates submitted so we can have a nice date range. And we can also search based on maybe severity, high, medium, or low. And then you can include any other additional filters that you'd like to have in your search form. For date submitted, let's have a date range, and to create the date range I need to include a new criteria, set the logical operator to end, and criteria 1 is going to be greater than or equal to, and criteria 2 is going to be less than or equal to. Okay, and I'm just going to make a little change to my label here. And severity, since we have high, medium, and low, let's go ahead and create this to be a drop-down, custom values, and we'll say search any as a null option, and then we're going to add high, medium, and low. Click on next. On the results page, I'd like to be able to see date submitted, who was the person that submitted that issue, and just some basic details here, and who it was assigned to, maybe a severity, upload a file, and if the issue was fixed or if it wasn't fixed. And then in our details page, we're going to include almost the same exact fields. So let's have all the information assigned to, severity, file, and notes. Click Finish. And let's deploy this data page as well. And this page we called Search All Issues. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove this placeholder. And once you go to this data page now, you're going to be able to see we have the ability to search based on a date range. Okay, when that issue was submitted, I can search based on severity. I can get to my results. And then from here we can see, who was the employee that submitted that issue, all the other information about it, and I can go to details and I can check additional information about that specific issue. Okay, and the very last thing that I want to build here is the ability for the management now to search all issues and be able to reassign issues to different employees. So let's go to our management folder, build another new data page, and I also want to build a report. Let's go into tabular format, click on next, based on the issues table, because that's where all the issues are, and let's call this reassign issues, for example. Apply the same style and restrict access based on the manager authentication. Click on next. Yeah, you can have a search form here, but let's go ahead and for now, why don't we just disable the search form and just filter our data. And you don't need to enable record level security because management is the highest level of the application. I'm not going to filter, and let's go ahead and in the results page show who submitted it, date submitted, just some basic information again, who that issue was assigned to, severity, file, and if it was fixed or if it wasn't fixed. And then in the details view is where you're actually going to make those changes to be able to reassign an issue. So let's have date submitted, submitted by, and then you're going to include both of these fields in the details page as well, and notes. And then as a manager, I should be able to reassign this issue to somebody else. So for example, on this field, instead of display only, I can make this be a drop-down. And same way as before, we can have a lookup table based on the employee view, and I want to display the employee's name and stamp it as the value employee name. And then the assign ID needs to be a cascading drop-down. And again, this is going to be based on the view, cascade based on assign to, which is the name, and then we're going to stamp the user's ID. As a manager, you also have the capability of editing all the other fields if you'd like. You can also change out the file. You can say if it was fixed or if it wasn't fixed. So as a manager, you do have more capability if you wish to enable that in your application. But for now, I only want to show these two fields as editable. Let's click Finish. And last but not least here, let's go ahead and deploy this data page into our web page, and we call that Manager Search All Issues. So let's remove this placeholder, paste our code, refresh our page, and now you can see that results page where we can see who was submitted by. Okay, we can see who is assigned to, severity, and then I can go to details, and now I can go ahead and reassign this issue to somebody else if there was another employee in the application. but I could have just as easily made all of these other fields editable, but for the management to be able to change additional information. Okay, well that concludes today's demo. All in all, it took about 25 minutes to build this application. So hopefully the lucky winner will get the prize. I thank you all for watching today's video and attending the Velocity conference. And on behalf of the Caspio team, thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you if you decide to give Caspio a try.